Every day brings new headlines of a confrontation, a growing confrontation between the government and the judiciary. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. Our focus today is on the Centre versus collegium battle, the fight over how judges of our country should be appointed. And now former judges are also weighing in. In fact, the Law Minister Kiran Rijiju has made it a point to quote a former high profile judge of the Delhi High Court, Justice RS Sodhi, who has basically said the collegium system of appointing judges is a failure. In fact, Justice Sodhi went on to tell a YouTube channel, LawStreet Bharat, that the Supreme Court has hijacked the constitution. Now, if the collegium system is flawed, is it really better to give politicians, any politicians, a greater say in the appointment of judges? At a time when the Chief Justice has called the basic structure doctrine the North Star for the judiciary, and the Vice President, Jagdeep Dhankar, a lawyer himself, has questioned that basic structure, where is this all going to end? Let's introduce our newsmaker on the program today, the judge that the law minister quoted and cited as an example of what he called India's beautiful democracy. Justice R.S. Sodhi, whom I've had the pleasure of following his cases and his career closely in the Delhi High Court. He's been a very high profile judge, handled cases like Jessica Lal, the Tandoor murder case, Priyadarshini Mattu, among others, now pulling no punches and speaking his mind as always. Great to see you, Justice Sodhi. How do you feel about becoming, in a sense, the poster boy, if I may, for the law minister? He's quoting you, he's agreeing with what you said. How did you feel about that?
Had I known that this was going to become so controversial, I would never have entered into it. I seem to be seem to have touched the honest nest, and I'm right in the middle of it now.
Now you're in the middle and you can't do anything. There you are in the eye of the storm.
You're right.
So let's talk a little bit seriously. Jokes apart, it's a very serious issue. How should a thriving democracy, where an independent judiciary is a must for the health of our democracy, how should the judges be appointed? Now, you have said the collegium system, which is effectively judges appointing their peers, is a flop, is a failed system. Why do you think that?
You see, firstly, I'm of the opinion that uh, the interpretation given by the Supreme Court to the Constitution and bringing about this collegium system, this itself is flawed. You cannot amend the Constitution by whatever means you want, because you have no right to do so. You can only interpret it, and by interpreting it, you just can't become the masters of your own self, just like that. We have a written constitution. It was working from 1970, 1950 to 93. It was working, functioning. You just can't amend it, all of a sudden say consultation means concurrence, and therefore now we are the masters of our own. This is called hijacking the constitution, and you have taken an oath to uphold the constitution. This is this is not done. All right, having done it, and the system having moved on, the collegium system was supposed to be a refined method of appointment of judges, but over the years it has sort of become much worse than the melody we were supposed to
So
rectify.
in a way, sir, you're saying that the cure has become worse than the disease.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now you can just imagine how the judges are being appointed. It's on whims and fancies only. Where is the criteria and who does it and how do you do it?
Hmm.
Just three people in the High Court and five people in the Supreme Court, and the whole country is held hostage to these people. I mean, how do you appoint them on what basis? Where's the criteria?
That's a
Who
strong
decides the
statement.
criteria?
You're saying the judges are being appointed on the whims and fancies of other judges.
Yes, and that also three in the High Court and three in the Supreme Court or five in the Supreme Court is I mean the whole nation is being held hostage like this on an interpretation of concurrence and consultation.
Let me
If
ask you
this is not
this.
If this
Let
is
me
not
ask you.
hijacking, what is it?
So you're saying the whole nation is being held hostage, the whole nation is
Yes,
hijacked, and whims
yes,
and fancies of a handful of judges is
yes,
deciding, in a sense, the face and the character of the entire judiciary.
yes, yes.
Question.
Only on the touchstone of independence. Your independence. How are you more independent or less independent? Or how does the High Court lose its independence because Supreme Court has become the appointing authority? Has the High
Yeah.
Court not lost its independence? Are the High Courts not constitutional authorities? Constitutional authorities without any independence. Now we are at the beck and call of the Supreme Court. They can choose anybody. They can make anybody the Chief Justice. They can transfer anybody. And I mean, we are at the beck and call of the Supreme Court. Is that what the Constitution said? Is that what the Constitution made a High Court also superior, also head of the judiciary in the state?
You're
The
saying
High
something
Court.
very important. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I just want to reiterate, in a sense, the essence of what you're saying. You're saying, in the name of preserving the independence of the Supreme Court, actually the high courts of India have been enfeebled, have been emasculated. You're saying the high courts are no longer independent. Can you elaborate
Yes,
a little bit on that?
yes. Now, see, now the appointing authority ultimately goes through the Supreme Court. Supreme Court will say yes, and the High Court judge will be appointed. All right. Appointment is done by the Supreme Court. Transfers are done by the Supreme Court. Which Chief Justice will go where is done by the Supreme Court. I mean the High Courts are left at your mercy, at your whims and fancies. Where are the criteria, and on what basis do you appoint or transfer or do all this? On what basis? Where is the basis? Just five of you sitting over there, or three of you sitting over there? You take the whole country for a ride, and we just sitting and watching and debating. And for so many years, we've been just watching, and you're sinking lower and lower and lower. And now you come to a level where we can't take it anymore. We're questioning you now.
You're being quite brave in a way in questioning the Supreme Court. Your own community or sections of it must be quite annoyed with you.
Well, I've never had the best of times. Or
Well, some of us are destined to be outspoken, and that is our character. But let me
I
let me
know,
ask
I
you
know.
this, sir. You are sounding angry. You're sounding quite angry. You have been a very, very bold judge. You've handled some of the toughest, headline grabbing cases of our time. As I said, the Jessica Lal murder, the Tandoor murder case, the Priyadarshini Madhu case, among others, many others. Have you in your life, as a Delhi High Court judge, felt that because of the system that you're today criticizing, your independence was impacted?
See, I was never in the race. I was never in the race to go to the Supreme Court. I became a judge at the age of 15 nearly. I was already an old man. This is
Sir, don't call 50 old, sir. I'm 50, sir.
At that time, I was already on the decline. I had a couple of years left. But as far as the judiciary itself is concerned, yes, you see, you have bartered away the High Court to say independence, and what independence are you talking of? That the government will have no say in it. Is this government so bad? Do we not want a government? Do we not want a parliament? Do we not want to? If it is so bad, why have a government? Have only the Supreme Court, and you will do everything whatever you like, and you don't have to be elected. You don't have to be anything. You can just keep on appointing yourself, and the whole nation will run. Will function wonderfully. Okay, fine. This is what we want. But we are a democracy, and in our democracy, Parliament is supreme. You have to like you can't say I distrust you. There can be no such thing as distrusting the parliament or
But can I but
distrusting the
can
government.
but can I ask you something? You're saying you
Yes,
cannot
please.
distrust the government. Let's
Yes,
and you say parliament is supreme. But
yes,
as you know, first came the constitution, right? First, this nation was born from the womb of the constitution. Everything derives from the constitution. Is it the
yes.
parliament that's supreme, or is it the constitution that's supreme?
The Constitution is supreme. Parliament will function under the Constitution, and so does the Supreme Court or the judiciary function under the Constitution. So Constitution is supreme, but lawmaking body is the Parliament, and that is the supremacy of lawmaking is with the Parliament and not with the Supreme Court.
So here's my question to you. You said, is the government so bad? It's not about this government, that government, BJP government, Congress government, Janata Dal government. My question simply is, you are right in saying the collegium system is flawed. But is it better to give politicians, any politicians, more power, more say in the appointment of judges, Justice Sodhi?
Now, see, I'm not saying give more power. I'm saying the same power which the Constitution has given, that power you can't take away. Whether it's more, whether it's less, I'm not getting into this. There is a power. The Constitution says something, you have to go by that Constitution or amend the Constitution. That's also available.
So that has happened. So let us talk now about the NJAC. Right now, you will remember that Parliament unanimously, politicians who don't agree on anything. If I remember, the only dissent was by Ram Jethmalani. Parliament unanimously got together and passes the NJAC bill for people who are not from the legal fraternity. Quite simply, it changes how judges should be appointed, and it changes the collegium system. It overturns the collegium system. So this happens. What does the Supreme Court do? It basically reads this down, saying that this violates the basic structure of the Constitution. And therefore, you no longer have a legislation that was actually unanimously passed by Parliament. Now, here is my question to you. In such a battle, who has the last word, the Supreme Court or the Parliament?
See, the Supreme Court has judicial review powers. Those powers are there. Now, you can use them honestly, and you can use them dishonestly. The power is yours. We expect it to be used honestly. Now, to say who will become more stronger and this and that, here is a Parliament which has not taken away your independence. How does it take away your independence? Because the earlier system was flawed. You said, I want to appoint myself. They said, no, you don't appoint yourself. There has to be a system to appoint you. And you say that is taken away my base. The basic structure has been upset. Why? Because it takes away my independence. Your independence, you have, the Supreme Court has already taken away the independence of the High Courts. I mean, you're thinking walkly. You just thinking that the entire judiciary is only the Supreme Court and nobody else.
But don't you think you have too much faith in governments? Don't you think you have too much faith? If you may be disillusioned with judges being a cabal, but
No,
politicians are not kind of people.
No, that I agree. But see, that the whole thing is, we are still a democracy. We keep on sending up people who are, like you say, not the best. But then that is it. They are not the best. So you mean the judges that are being appointed are the best? They are suffering from the same malady. Now we have to set right this position some way or the other.
So what is the best way forward? Let me ask you something. We have seen in recent days an unprecedented public statement from the collegium, which has clashed with the government over the appointment of openly gay lawyer Saurabh Kirpal, the son also of a former judge whom you would know, Justice B.N. Kirpal. And the collegium has made it clear to the government that once the collegium reiterates its choice, the government is bound by it. Now, let me cite this as an example of why a collegium or giving judges more say sometimes becomes important. The government, for reasons that are many people would find regressive, is not appointing Mr. Kirpal to the post of a judge. This is an example where the collegium is saying we should have the last word. Is this not an example of the healthy side of the collegium, that it can assert itself against sometimes narrow-minded ideas, sometimes regressive ideas, sometimes political resistance from any government? This time it's BJP, tomorrow it'll be somebody else.
You see, in this example of yours, you're probably right. See, this example is an extreme example of one type. But then this is not the best of the examples, but examples also, because Mr. Kirpal is a very, very fine lawyer. Besides having whatever his own commitments are, but he's a very, very fine lawyer, and I'm sure he will make a fantastic judge. But now, and this kind of an objection by the government, I don't think it's in correct taste. It's not in correct taste. But this can be sorted out. It could have been sorted out. Well, I mean, you both parties can't just take a stand and hold by it. I mean, you have to.
Do you think you're obviously not happy with the collegium, but are you happy with the way the government is also responding? It's a very public spat. Is one day the law minister is saying something, one day the vice president is saying something. I mean, one day Chief Justice Chandrachud is saying something. Ye kya ho raha hai?
The problem is two limbs of our constitution, which are such high dignitaries. They are mudslinging at each other. At whose cost? I mean, what are they doing? They are slinging mud at each other and have virtually come to the street and telling us, "No, please tell us who's right." Please, for heaven's sake, you should know how to sort out your problems. You can't come to us now and say, "He's saying this, he's saying this." Both of you crying over what? And am I going to be sitting over here and saying, no, don't do this. I finished. Come on, for heaven's sake, do it yourself.
Yeah, but
There has to be that.
but where do you come in on the basic structure? You see, as students of law would know, in the 1970s itself, you have the Keshwaran Bharti case from which flows what we call the basic structure. In other words, the Supreme Court decides that Parliament can legislate on everything or anything as long as it's not in violation of the basic structure of the Constitution. Now you have the Vice President saying that this is flawed because the court overstepped its jurisdiction in determining which, this very principle. The Chief Justice has hit back, calling it a North Star. What do you think about the basic structure doctrine?
Well, can anybody tell me which is the basic structure? Which part of the Constitution is basic? And what is basic? Why is no judge or no judgment telling us what is the basic structure? What can't be done? By merely saying basic structure shall not be disturbed, and you introduce whatever you like into the basic structure, and deem that to be the basic structure. What is the basic structure of the Constitution? Nobody knows.
When you say nobody knows the basic structure of the Constitution, are you saying you disagree with the principle as laid down by the Supreme Court in the Keshwaran Bharti case?
I don't say that. I said, if there is a basic structure, please define it. Let us know what is that basic structure which cannot be disturbed. Now, the Parliament can amend Part 3 of the Constitution. Your rights can be taken away. All right. Is that not the basic structure? What can the Parliament do and not do? It may not be able to undo itself. That we dissolve the Constitution itself. That may be the basic structure then. Well, but I mean, please define the basic structure, and then on that touchstone, we can be more enlightened. But again, basic structure also cannot depend on whims and fancies. You can't have it by heads I win and tails you lose. You can't have it that way.
So you believe that when the Vice President questioned where this imagined idea, not imagined actually, it's court precedent, comes from, you think that precedent itself was flawed? That we have all sworn, the country is sworn by this basic structure doctrine since the 70s.
The Constitution is the basic structure. The Constitution is itself the lifeline of this nation. Without the Constitution, we are nothing. I mean, neither is Parliament there, basic or not basic. Neither is the Supreme Court or the court there, basic or not basic. They all derive their power only from the Constitution. And the basic structure is...
As I'm talking to you, I'm feeling an earthquake in Delhi. And I first thought it's a metaphorical quake in our courts versus judiciary, but it seems to be a real one. So let me wrap this up quickly and ask you in the end, what is the way forward?
both of them have to be sensible and have to come on the table and and frame a law by the Parliament, which is all right, which is at least try and be the best. It may not be absolute, it may not be absolutely wonderful, but let's try and improve on what we are today and what we were yesterday. So let's improve.
You say the collegium system has failed, but there are others who say, and you say absolutely, but there are others who say your focus should be on reforming the collegium system, not abolishing it. Where's your last word on that?
Why should there be a collegium system? Why should I give my powers to 3 or 2 or 4 or 5? Where is the reform?
What has been the most damaging aspect of the collegium system?
Appointments of judges on whims and fancies without criteria.
Very strong words, Justice RS Sodhi. At the same time, you do not want to be the shoulder from which the government fires its guns.
No. They better fire the guns from their own shoulders.
Well said, and thank you for being so outspoken and blunt as ever. Justice Sodhi, pleasure talking to you, and we'll be following this story closely, so we hope to have you back with us very soon. Thank you, sir. Take care.
Thank you,
sir. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.